Welcome to study session 12, Immediate Predecessors of Modern International State System 2, Rise of Nation States in Europe. In this study session, you will learn about the rise of states system in Europe. Over the centuries, the kings and lesser rulers successfully extended their rule over the disparate rural and frontier areas of Europe. They slowly gained the authority to tax, and usually through bribery, war, and extortion, they effectively disarmed their vassals, undermined the ancient rights and independence of free cities, and created effective bureaucracies throughout their realms. Already in the early 14th century, some of these secular rulers began to challenge the authority of the Holy Roman Empire under the doctrine of in regno suo, that is, the king is emperor in his own realm. These early claims of independent authority led to a cascade of both theological and political independence. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Explain the political conditions that gave rise to the emergence of nation states. 2. Analyze the nation states that emerged. 3. Highlight the characteristics of a nation state. 4. Discuss the system structure of a nation state. 5. Summarize the diplomacy of nation states. The emergence of nation states. Let us start by examining the political conditions in Europe that gave rise to emergence of nation states. In Europe, there were scattered territories with capitals ruled by monarchs. The political authority of the monarch did not reach the provinces. Boundaries were shifted in accordance with the outcomes of wars, because the ideal of territorial integrity did not exist. States could not go into extinction as they were taken over and swallowed up by bigger ones. Administration was decentralized and disorganized. European nation states. Germany. Throughout the third quarter of the 15th century, there was no German emperor, as the national politics of Germany was submerged in a morass of internal wars and disputes. By the 14th century, the center of Germany had moved noticeably eastward, and the magnates at the top of feudal hierarchy was more powerful than ever. In dealing with the French and the papacy, a strong German emperor could be useful, and the continued disorder within Germany also called for the establishment of some central authority. In the eyes of the German magnates, then, the emperor should be able to assert the rights of Germany in international affairs, while at home he served the interests of the princes who elected him. A number of factors combined to prevent the emperor from consolidating their gains. The internal resistance was aided by foreign powers opposed to the establishment of a strong German monarchy. Germany at the end of the 15th century remained a geographical rather than a political designation. Spain. The Iberian Peninsula was divided into several kingdoms: Portugal, Castile, Aragon, Valencia, Catalonia, Navarre, and Granada in the south. Jews and Moors lived and traded in Granada. During the early Middle Ages, the Muslim conquest introduced the Arabic language and Arabic institutions to the Roman Visigothic society that had prevailed in the Iberian Peninsula. The first rebirth of classical learning of Western Europe was on the Iberian Peninsula. To the north of Muslim Spain, there existed some Spanish Christian kingdoms. In the 12th century, the Christian princes began the movement of expansion into Muslim territory. What has been known in history as the Reconquista. For 2 centuries, the Spanish Christian kings, the nobility, and the church cooperated in a battle against the Muslims for control of Spain. The princes provided the unit and direction of the movement, while the church preached a crusade against the Muslim. By the 14th century, most of Spain had been conquered for Christendom, except the small kingdom of Granada on the southern coast of Spain. The nobles, unrestrained by a highly developed feudal system, were a constant threat to the development of a centralized political system. The great magnates, as well as the lesser nobility, shared legal and extra-legal privileges, which made it difficult to control. The cities and the clergy also formed separate social and political elements, jealous of their autonomy and aggressive in the pursuit of privileges and immunities. Parliamentary institutions appeared in Spain earlier than in the rest of Europe, but they did not effectively limit the power of the sovereign. The composition of the cortes, that is, estates, depended upon the king, who could call as many or as few of the nobles, clergy, and burgesses as he wished. Through the marriage of Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of Aragon, and Isabella, the heiress to the throne of Castile, the two kingdoms were joined together in 1479. This resulted in the birth of Spain. Only the tiny kingdom of Navarre in the north, Portugal in the west, and Muslim Granada in the south remained outside the jurisdiction of Aragon and Castile when the two joined into one kingdom. The reign of these two monarchs had a decisive influence on the institutions of 16th century Spain. Through their efforts, the territorial aggrandizement of Spain was accompanied by the development of national political institutions and by economic expansion, which placed Spain in the front rank of European states. The conquest of Granada, which was completed in 1492, removed the Muslims from Spain as an independent political force. It also served to develop an effective national army under the control of sovereign England. The necessity and desirability of national government and of monarch were firmly entrenched in the political consciousness of 13th century England. Effective power of the English crown was still dependent upon the personality and ability of the monarchs. With the accession of Edward, that is 1272 to 1307, England found itself again under the leadership of a popular and ambitious monarch. He produced legislation dealing with every aspect of government. During his reign, the Central Court of Common Pleas, King's Bench, and Exchequer became clearly distinct as the functioning of the common law was made more efficient. In foreign as well as domestic affairs, Edward tried to expand the domain of English government. Wales proved a much easier prey than Scotland, where English aggression only arose Scottish nationalism. Military ventures demanded increased taxation. Edward found the calling of a general parliament the most effective way to publicize his need for money and gain the commitment of the nation to an increase in royal revenue. Parliament served the royal purposes, but it also allowed the subjects to make decisions upon the king. France. The reign of Philip IV, the fear of France from 1285 to 1314, marked a high point in the development of national monarchy. Philip IV built upon the territorial and institutional base left by his predecessor to extend the royal domain and to increase the power of the monarch in the nation at large. His ministers, many of them lawyers, fought with all the legal and illegal tools available to the monarch against those who remained outside his authority. England, France, and the 100 Years' War, the most highly developed nation states in the 14th and 15th centuries, were England and France, where foundation of monarchical government had been laid in the 13th century. At the same time, the menace of English invasion had heightened French national consciousness, and the consolidation of royal power made the French nation more of territorial and governmental reality. Italy. Italy was an exemption to the pattern of political and social development that existed in medieval Europe. The most sustaining attempt to bring some overriding unity to the entire Italian peninsula was undertaken by the Hohenstaufen House, which had the tragic good fortune in the last decade of the 12th century to inherit both the kingdom of Sicily in southern Italy and Holy Roman Emperorship. The characteristics of the modern nation states in Europe. The distinguishing factor of the nation state from other forms of political organization was the concentration of power in the hands of the monarchs, that is, the emergence of royal power or sovereign as a center of political allegiance. The nation state became the recognized political unit. The consciousness of the rise of nation states. By the end of the 15th century, European political life was dominated by the national states, limited in its territory but increasingly powerful within its domain. As feudal forms of authority became obsolete, the central authority of the crown became responsible for the well-being of the kingdom. As the functions of the state expanded, public institutions grew to fill the new needs of society. The early modern period gave rise to that clear distinction between public and private authority, which is a fundamental characteristic of the modern state. The state asserted authority in economics and other areas which the medieval states had been unequipped to touch. Above all, it finally and not without difficulty subordinated all elements in society to a centralized authority through the assertion of a monopoly on the right to physical coercion. Diplomacy of the nation states. The establishment of the monarch as the head of the national state did, however, transform international politics. Just as the state was the fundamental economic unit of the society, so was its the fundamental political division. The attempt of Charles V to revive the medieval ideal of the universal emperor went aground upon the rock of royal absolutism. The international scope of his authority could no longer penetrate the national and local structure within his wide domains. Thenceforth, the smaller and more homogeneous nation-states predominated in international affairs. The power of the Holy Roman Emperor was gone, and France, the state which most successfully developed royal absolutism, moved to the forefront of European politics. Study session summary. In this study session, you explored the rise and structure of state system in Europe. This is the end of study session 12. Thank you for listening.